Hello everyone, welcome to the Facts channel for the part 2 of the 100 facts about dinosaurs. Before starting our video, please make sure to subscribe our channel and like and comment on our videos. Facts number 31. In the entirety of the first Jurassic Park movie, there were just 15 minutes in which dinosaurs were shown. Animated dinosaurs like the enormous robotic T-Rex took up 9 of those minutes. The other 9 were all CGI, which is a remarkable achievement for a 1993 movie. 32. One species of dinosaur had 4 wings. This tiny bird-like dinosaur, affectionately known as the Microraptor, was just 2 to 3 feet, which is 60 to 90 centimeters long, and weighed around 2 to 3 pounds. Since the turn of the 21st century, hundreds of fossilized remnants have been discovered, and every single one of them unequivocally demonstrates that the Microraptor possessed wings on both of its front and hind legs. 33. Corythosauruses used their crests to make loud trombone-like sounds. Many of their crests were hollow and connected to their nasal passages directly. The sound the Corythosaurus made when it exhaled would have been low frequency and very loud. 34. The majority of dinosaurs were herbivorous. The apex predators that inhabited the top of the food chain were the carnivorous dinosaurs. They were significantly rarer than other dinosaurs since they resided at the top. On Earth, there would have been large herds of different sized herbivorous dinosaurs that were hunted by much smaller groups of carnivores. 35. A new Triceratops relative was nicknamed Hellboy, after the popular comic book character. Due to its distinctive skull shape, this fossil, officially known as Regaliceratops petrihefsi after the geologist who made its first discovery, quickly acquired its humorous moniker. It resembled a Triceratops in appearance, but had little horns right above each eye like Hellboy. 36. Some carnivorous dinosaurs had hollow bones. Dinosaurs like velociraptors and T-Rex really stores air in their bones to boost their breathing ability, just like modern birds do. Because of this variation, these dinosaurs were virtually lighter on their feet and were able to breathe much more effectively, both of which are necessities for a predator. 37. When King Edward VI saw sketches of the first Diplodocus skeleton, he requested a cast of it for London's Natural History Museum. When King Edward VI visited the home of a well-known Scottish businessman in 1902, he first saw the sketch. The plaster cast reproduction of a Diplodocus quickly earned the moniker Dippy and served as the centerpiece of the museum of more than a century. 38. Diplodocuses had the longest tails of any known dinosaurs. The magnificent 46-foot-long tail of Diplodocus made up for the fact that it wasn't the longest dinosaur ever. The plates that Stegosauruses had along their back weren't used for defense. For a while, this was the most widely accepted idea, but it has since been supplanted by 2 primary hypotheses. Either the plates were used to display other Stegosauruses or even to help control their temperature. Given that these plates were crammed with blood veins, it is possible that warm blood was pumped to them and subsequently cooled on the broad, flat surfaces, much like a radiator in a car. 40. The average dinosaur weighed about 7,700 ibs, which is equal to 3,493 kilograms. When comparing the weights of all known dinosaurs, that is the mathematical average. You might be wondering how big a typical dinosaur was. It's still quite enormous, roughly the size of an elephant or rhino. 41. There's a fossil of a Protoceratops and a Velociraptor caught in the middle of a death match. The two were locked in place for millions of years by a landslide while they were engaged in a fierce combat. Although the Velociraptor had its long claws driven well into the neck of the Protoceratops, the fight wasn't one-sided. As the Protoceratops had shattered the Velociraptor's right arm with its jaws, the latter was also struggling for its life. 42. Some dinosaurs may have shed their skins. According to the information we currently have, it doesn't appear like they shed their skin all at once like modern snakes or lizards do. In actuality, the only proof we have comes from dinosaurs that resembled birds and shed little pieces of skin from in between their feathers. 43. The Oviraptor had a beak instead of teeth. These theropods fossils, which have an odd appearance, were discovered in Mongolia and date to between 85 and 75 million years ago. Given that it lacked teeth, it was probably an egg-based diet, hence the name egg thief. 44. People debated whether the Brontosaurus was a unique species for more than 100 years. The first Brontosaurus skeleton was discovered in 1879. Many people question whether it really was a new species because of its resemblance to the previously identified Apatosaurus. All Brontosaurus specimens were therefore identified as Apatosaurids. This persisted up until 2015 when a thorough investigation into the relationships between these species revealed that the Brontosaurus was in fact a distinct species, leading to their claiming of the name. 45. The dinosaur with the longest claws was the Therizinosaurus. The terrifying dinosaur, appropriately dubbed the Reaping Lizard, had 3 long claws on each arm that were 3.2 feet long and resembled scythes. Its extraordinarily long claws make it the longest clawed mammal that was ever lived. 46. Dinosaurs were distantly related to the crocodiles. There are several similarities between crocodiles, Pterosaurus, Mosasaurus, Ichthyosaurus, and dinosaurs. To begin with, they are all reptiles, but there is more to it than that. Between 250 and 200 million years ago, they all descended from the same clade of Archosaurus, who were their common ancestors. 47. Some dinosaurs intentionally swallowed huge stones. These gastrolithic stones may have assisted herbivores in breaking down the vegetation they consumed into more easily absorbed components. Similar to how tadpoles and modern axolotls do it, it's possible that Plesiosaurus also swallowed stones to assist control their buoyancy. 48. Up until 1923, we didn't know how dinosaurs were born. Since dinosaurs were reptiles, we assumed they deposited eggs, but there was no evidence to support this. The smoking gun was the discovery of a group of dinosaur eggs preserved in fossil form in Mongolia in 1923. 49. Not all dinosaurs laid the same kind of eggs. The majority of preserved dinosaur eggs had hard shells similar to modern birds' eggs. Early dinosaurs may have laid their eggs and buried them like current lizards, based on a few fossilized soft-shelled eggs that have been discovered. 50. Some ichthyosaurs gave birth to their infants' tail first to prevent them from drowning before they reached the water's surface. Even though they were reptiles, ichthyosaurs, like the Stenopterygius, resembled modern dolphins in many ways. They raised their young in embryos rather than eggs, giving birth to them only when they were able to swim. 51. The largest carnivorous dinosaur was the Spinosaurus. The Spinosaurus, Greek for spine lizard, was not only the largest meat-eating dinosaur, but had huge spines sticking out of its back, which formed a kind of sail. The largest Spinosaurus fossil indicates that they could grow up to 18 meters long and weigh up to 23 tons. 52. We have no idea what color dinosaurs were. Some scientists believe that dinosaurs would have had rather dull colors, like elephants and rhinos, so they could blend in with the environment and avoid predators. On the contrary, it is also commonly theorized that dinosaurs were actually brightly colored so that they could easily attract potential mates, much like today's birds. 53. The Quetzalcoatlus northrop had the largest wingspan out of any known pterosaurus. Can you imagine looking into the sky and seeing a dinosaur-like creature the size of a small plane soaring overhead? The Quetzalcoatlus northropi, named after the Mesoamerican god, lived in the late Cretaceous period and had a mind-bending 23 to 43-foot wingspan. 54. The Qantassaurus was named after Australia's main commercial airline. This 6-foot-long herbivore was first discovered during a dig in the Australian state of Victoria in 1996, but spent 3 years without the name. Finally, in 1999, it was named the Qantassaurus after Qantas, the Australian airline, which at the time sponsored the transport of many dinosaur fossils across Australia. 55. We are able to estimate the speed of dinosaurs from their fossilized footprints. Unfortunately, it's incredibly challenging to figure out which footprint belonged to which dinosaur, with most tracks left unidentified. 56. One of the UK's greatest early paleontology pioneers was not recognized in her time because she was a woman. At the beginning of 19th century, science was still a man's line of work, making life increasingly frustrating for Mary Anning. Despite this, she preserved and unearthed fossil after fossil, including the first ever pterosaur found outside of Germany. 57. The fastest dinosaurs had long ostrich-like limbs. The ostrich mimic ornithomimids were named as such because they were bird-like and covered in feathers. From the analysis of fossilized footprints, it was ascertained that dinosaurs of this genus were among the fastest, reaching a speed up to 25 miles per hour. 58. The Cosmoceratops had 15 horns sticking out of its face. With more horn than any other known dinosaur, the Cosmoceratops, a relative of the Triceratops, certainly had the most ornate skull. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, somewhere between 76 to 75 million years ago. 59. The Velociraptors in Jurassic Park were actually a completely different raptor. The raptors in the novel and the films were based almost entirely on the Deinonychus, a completely different, much larger raptor found in the US. Michael Crichton, the author of Jurassic Park, met with the discoverer of the Deinonychus to learn about the raptor's behavior. He even admitted that the raptors in his novel were Deinonychuses in all but name. 60. Deinonychuses likely used their claws to disembowel their prey. It's thanks to their oversized razor-sharp hind claw that they gained their name, which translates into terrible claw. Their claws likely allowed them to inflict mortal wounds on their enemies, after which they could wait at a safe distance until they perished. 61. Velociraptors were about the same size as turkeys. While they were probably still pretty terrifying, they were nothing like the nightmare including raptors from Jurassic Park. In fact, more recently discovered Velociraptor fossils have proved that they had long feathered tails and wings feathered on their arms. 62. Velociraptor's name translates into speedy thief. Henry Fairfield Osborn, then the American Museum of Natural History president, gave the Velociraptor its name in 1924. He named it as such because of his quite accurate assessment that it would have been an incredibly swift yet agile carnivorous dinosaur. 63. The Pentaceratops had the largest skull out of any known dinosaurs. Measuring at 10.49 feet high, the skull of the Pentaceratops was also largest of any animal ever to walk the earth. 64. Most dinosaurs in Jurassic Park didn't live during the Jurassic period. While the Jurassic Park series certainly made dinosaurs much more popular, it wasn't entirely accurate. Out of all the dinosaurs featured in the first film, only the Brachiosaurus and Dilophosaurus actually belonged to the Jurassic period, while the rest mostly belonged to the Cretaceous period. To give you an idea of how wrong this was, the Jurassic period ranged from 200 to 145 million years ago, while the Cretaceous ranged from 145 to 66 million years ago. 65. Pachycephalosauruses Vimignesis had a 9-inch thick skull. This thick-headed dinosaur likely had the thickest skull of all, letting paleontologists wonder what it could have been used for. Some believe they would have head-butted each other to display their strength, but this theory is a little questionable as it appears their neck bones weren't strong enough to withstand such strong impact. Thank you for watching our video. For the part 3 of the 100 facts about dinosaurs and other interesting facts, please subscribe our channel.